At this time, I'd like to introduce some of the people that were involved in the rescue operations up here on Mount Hood. First, I'd like to introduce Ralph Summers. Ralph is was one of the persons that walked out from the cave on the second day. We have Lieutenant Gene Hanners. He is from the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office. We have Sergeant Harder from the 304th, and we have Pete I can't pronounce it again. Bustanaby. He is from Portland Mountain Rescue, Seattle Mountain Rescue, excuse me. We have Cheryl McClure from Portland Mountain Rescue. We have Bill Conley from Timberline Lodge. At approximately 5:20 p.m. This evening, the rescue team located all 8 climbers in a snow cave at the 8,300 elevation level. This is on the south side of the mountain above a ridge on the White River Glacier. The cave was approximately 5 feet above where the single victim was found on Wednesday. This time I'd like to turn it over to Sergeant Harder to give you a detailed account of what he found while he was up there.
Later this afternoon, Sergeant Eck and myself were deployed up there, and we, with the help of this gentleman here, we organized a probing line from the initial spot where the helicopter let us off, and we had 23 people on a probe line working our way down the mountain, seeing if we could probe and hit something. Sergeant Eck was being belayed by Airman Dugan above in front of everybody, checking for crevasses and checking over the lip. Later in the afternoon, Sergeant Eck, when he was probing, hit the first pack, which was approximately 10 to 15 feet uphill from where we found the cave. Sergeant Eck then started digging with the help of Sergeant Kasperzak and Ralph and Airman Dugan, and we found 2 packs and an ice axe. Okay, where it was so steep, so we regrouped, and we were going to get everybody on belay and do probing right at the edge. While this was going on, Airman Dugan had Sergeant Eck on belay next to me, and Sergeant Eck found the cave. At that time, we didn't locate any of the people as yet, and they started digging down, and about approximately 3 to 4 feet, Sergeant Kasperzak and Sergeant Eck found the opening of the cave. At that time, they kept digging, and Sergeant Kasperzak heard a faint voice, which was of the first 2 survivors. He says, "They're talking to us." I wanted to beat him up for joking about it. They were alive. So we started intense digging situation. Sergeant Eck was in charge of that. I got on the radio, not very calmly, and said, "Get everybody organized," and we started digging the patients out. Extra medical supplies were being flown up. We were in communication because of the low body temperatures of the first 2 patients. We were extremely concerned that they would go into cardiac arrest because of hypothermia. We were unable to get an IV on these patients, and that's why we had to get a hold of the physicians to get a consult on what we were going to do before we were going to move them. We did get a consult with them, and we were unable to get an IVs on them, so we just went with our best bet of being as slow as we can and as gentle as we can, and get the patients out. It was a total group effort by all the individuals that were up there, and I thought it worked out very well.
Okay, just if there's any questions to any of the people, we would...
This gentleman's name, would you spell it for us?
Later. We would like, at this time, if there's any questions to ask any of the members up here, they will field questions.
Why did you have trouble getting the in?
The extremities were somewhat frozen. and no blood circulation to the extremities. And it's unable to, we're unable to start IVs there, so that's why we went with that predetermined way to treat these patients.
Were you prepared because of this? You must have known that there's that possibility to have frozen extremities. Were you prepared for that at all?
Okay, we've been doing this over a number of years, and myself personally have had 4 people go into cardiac arrest because of hypothermia. You have to take things slow and easy, and we just had to do the best that we could. I mean, these people are under all this snow.
Bagger, did any of these folks at any time say anything to you at all? At any time, either in the helicopter or in the cave?
No, they were too hypothermic to talk at all.
Smiling or doing
No, they were not smiling. The patients were just conscious and alert and just into a daze.
They made sounds, did they, or?
You know, breathing sounds. They're not saying, "Hi, how are you today?"
Was that the 2 patients?
Those the first 2 patients.
None of the other patients gave you any kind of optimistic signs like those?
Well, they got one guy going the other day. Got his heart going, so, hey. A lot of people thought we weren't even going to find him, so.
Do you remember how you felt when you realized you found it? Were you excited?
Hey, Sergeant Eck, how did we feel? We felt pretty dang excited, right? Yeah, it was great. We're talking really great.
Could we ask Mr. Summers to explain what led him to this particular area?
Well, we were looking for some specific terrain things, a crevasse, a drop off, some things that I remember on the way out, and I walked out in a whiteout so you couldn't see very far. We saw some things up the hill that looked like that, and in this place that we ended up searching today, all those things had much filled over, but it sort of felt right. We were down there having lunch. That was right where the helicopter was landing, and I looked at the area when I got down there and walked around quite a bit, talked to a couple other searchers, and just started brainstorming about ideas, and it looked good and it felt okay, so we line searched a much closer, tighter pattern. And
Did you have any idea that was where at that time, that was where one of the people that died, or at least had gone down?
there was somebody found really close to that area, yeah.
Did you know that?
Yeah. And we also took a back azimuth on a bearing that I took when I walked out, and that zeroed us in fairly close to that area.
Is there any reason why you didn't search that area close to where the first bodies were found earlier than today?
Mostly because the area looked so much different and had changed so much. Because of the storm that forced us to dig in, the terrain changed considerably.
Mr. Sir, this is a tough question, but do you have any regrets about starting your trip when you did? Apparently some other groups called off their climbs out today because of warnings of weather, and they may not be turned on, but I just wonder how you felt about it. Do you have any regrets there?
The weather in the morning was pretty good. Visibility was good. It was just a little windy. We knew there was a front coming in, but visibility was fine. And if it wasn't for a kid that initially in the morning was very strong, getting hypothermic on the way down, and us having to slow down and stop and deal with that, we may have been able to walk off. But you can't think back and change those things.
How long did you lose because of that kid?
An hour, maybe more, a couple hours, maybe travel time.
Ralph, can you tell us a little bit about the conditions in which you and Molly left the rest of the group? Was there a decision that you two would leave? Tell us a little bit about what happened there.
Well, we couldn't sit in that hole forever, and people didn't know where we were. They just knew that we hadn't come down. The weather was worse the next morning than it was when we dug in, and our condition was somewhat worse because we hadn't really slept much, and we were damp from being inside, and frozen clothing thawing out because it was warm in there. And you couldn't stand around outside. You had to move outside to clear the entryway of the cave, and you get outside and it's really cold, and in 5 minutes you're shivering really hard. So I knew I just had to walk out, and movement and walking would keep me warm enough, and I knew if I walked I'd get out, and I should take someone with me. I asked one kid and didn't feel up to it. He felt cold, and I said, "Who in there feels strong?" And Molly popped out of the cave, and we were gone.
Did you tell them you'd be back? Was there any sort of discussion when you left? Well, we're going to any sort of anything happen?
Real quick, real quick. I mean, we didn't have a long formal discussion, but it was a quick understanding.
When you left, can you tell us a little bit about the conditions of your rest of your friends there when you left?
People were cold and damp, but they were real concerned about each other and taking turns taking care of each other. The people that went out to clear the doorway then came in and got rewarmed by other people, and they took turns rewarming each other and take turns being cold.
What were your feelings when you first realized that you might have hit something?
Pretty dang glad. I felt pretty good.
Was there any kind of contingency plan for the people left behind in the event they didn't hear from you after a certain amount of time?
No, just stay put. Don't try to go anywhere.
I'm sorry, what's your theory of what happened to the three who were found outside the cave?
I don't want to talk about theories and make things up because we could do that all day. You can only talk about facts.
Among the people who were grieving or children, have you said that yet?
I think they were younger individuals. You can call the hospital and find out.
What kind of conditions did you find all these people once you start seeing them one by one? Would you want to? We already know what he is saying, but you must have seen something too.
I'm not a doctor, so I can't comment on that.
What were the positions in the cave? What was going on in the lab? Were there bodies on bodies, or what was going on?
Yeah, they were on top and intertwined.
How about
What did the cave
size
look
of
like?
cave?
Yeah, could you tell us the size and what the cave looked like?
Pretty small. It was about the size of you folks sitting down there on the ground, with not quite being able to sit up as tall as you are now.
How deep
The
was it?
door had filled in somewhat. It was much bigger when it was originally dug, and the snow was blowing and drifting, and people moving in and out filled the front of it a bit.
And how deep was that? How far into the snow?
There was easily another 4 feet of snow from when we originally dug the cave to when we got there today.
Were they brought out in the order they were found, or were they brought out in the order of their condition?
We were brought out in the order of the condition. We triaged the patients up there, Sergeant Kasperzak and Sergeant Eck and myself, and we triaged the patients and slowly took the patients out.
Dick, were you surprised?
Well, all you people are saying, well, when you giving up? And we kept saying, we're staying here. We like it. And no, I was surprised, but just like we were talking earlier, we've been on these for a number of years, and anything can happen. You can find them down at the freeway or in the trees. Today we've found something that people can live under 4 feet of snow for 3 days, and I think it's a very, very rewarding feeling to each person that was involved in this whole operation. And I feel the sheriff and the mountain rescue organization really organized this really well.
Why couldn't the dogs find them? I understand they're trained to find people under up to 8 feet of snow. Is that right?
There weren't any dogs where this afternoon where we were. The people that were running the dogs had been out there for an extremely long time and went down to take a break.
And we had just found them. We set up a standard grid search with the probing and had everybody 6 feet apart on a line, working our way down the hill right to the edge of the lip, and you're looking down a few hundred feet, and Sergeant Eck found him.
I heard on the radio, one of the radios down there, that there was some concern about the number of helicopters you had. Was that a problem at some stage?
Well, when you have hypothermic patients, you have to have plenty of room to do cardiac arrest and stuff. Once we did find the patients, that's why I called for even more backup helicopters, the Life Flight helicopters. We had a total of 4 Air Force helicopters. Our helicopters are able to carry up to 6 patients, but with this type of situation, we wanted to be able to do good CPR or whatever medical treatment is, and I think the people down here that was running the triage station should be really commended for taking the worries out of our mind up on the mountain. They did an excellent job.
Mr. Summers, ever since this ordeal began, there's been an awful lot of reports on what people should take up on the mountain when they go. On another day hike, would you take more equipment than you did today, or do Monday? Would you change your strategy?
That's another one of those questions that you can always look back on experiences in your life and say, what if?
Will you?
And There might be some minor changes, but I don't know if I'd do it 100% differently. All those people out there were wearing much better clothing than most people usually wear. They had wool and shells on, and I think if that wasn't the case, if they hadn't been trained in proper clothing and equipment and things like that, then they would not have been in the shape that we found them today.
I'm led to believe that you turned back around about 3 o'clock or 3:30 on the Monday, is that correct?
It may have been a little later than that.
Given that it had taken you 12 hours to get to the point where you were, from a 2:30 start to a 3:30 turnaround point, do you think that was not leaving it a little long to turn around, given that it might take you 12 hours to get back, that it put you in the middle of the night?
Walking downhill takes a lot less time than walking uphill.
Look, I think that's all the questions we'll have time for. Right now, I think they want to take a break. Maybe we'll cut it down, and then maybe on an individual basis, you can approach some of the people and have a little bit more.
How many, were there life signs, and how many of the 8 people that you brought down?
You go call the hospital, okay?
Wait, I mean, you noticed, so we heard the first 2 there were life signs, and the 2 that weren't. Did you have any, you don't remember, or?
Well, I just read.
I think that information may be available later from another source. Hey, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I think the people from the Mountain Rescue Team did also an excellent job on this. Thanks again for everything.
Could I, is there going to be, I'm sorry, excuse me a second, is there going to be a central setup someplace else at one of the hospitals now to?
I don't know that, I didn't get that information.
We gridded off the area where we're gonna be, the most probable spot, and that's when myself and Sergeant Eck went up there this afternoon in Oregon. Didn't do extensive probing, you know, D,
I'm sorry, H-A-R-D-E-R. What was
Okay,
Sergeant
so
X?
anyway, that's what, you know,
So, it just,
we
one of those
just
things
more.
that you had to do the probing to find it.
And we found it.
What was Sergeant X first?
Charlie,
Richard.
Master
How do you
Sergeant.
spell Master Sergeant.
Richard Harder, EK.